presentation, but it kind of gives you an idea as to what we've accomplished last year and sort of what we're looking forward to in the future. So this is the start of our presentation. Just at the station itself, I want everyone to know, and most of you do, that this is worth saving. It's not an easy task that we do, but we do it for the love and the importance of what we have. Can you hear me? Is this on? Can you hear me now? Better?
Better.
Well, normally when I give a presentation, there are some people out there who don't know where South Fox Island is. Does anybody out here not know where it is? Great. This is a really nice aerial that was taken by Dusty Cliffman this past summer, and it's always nice to get someone who's up in the air. It used to be we had to go by plane. Now drones take a lot of that for us. This is a recap of that we have 7 remaining structures out of the station, and while the station itself is 115 acres, the buildings are primarily located on the bottom 10 acres of the island. So a little bit about the station itself. Started in 1867 with the construction of the Lighthouse. And you can see that there is a fence around that, and that was to keep the sand out because there were no trees or vegetation to help block that. Henry Rowe was the first lightkeeper. Imagine what it would be like to be the first lightkeeper, to be out there while they were building it, having to stay in another structure, and not having anyone else to assist or help you. He was a keeper from 1867 through 1871, but didn't get an assistant until much later in his term. The instructions in the keeper's manual required them to visit the light at least twice during the night, between 8 p.m. and sunrise, and on stormy nights the lights must be constantly looked after. The light must be lit and then extinguished daily. Wicks trimmed, clockwork weights cranked, and maintenance performed. There's a saying that lightkeepers go crazy. Anyone ever hear that? Well, there was some truth to that, because the original clockwork mechanisms for the light floated on a tray of mercury. And it was the lightkeeper's job to keep all dust and everything out of that mercury so it continued to turn smoothly. And a lot of times they would wet their finger and they would dip in and they would take out what they wanted. So they really did go crazy, but it was from mercury poisoning, not just from being alone. In 1895, the fog signal building was built along with the oil house. The oil house could hold 360 gallons of fuel. And many lighthouses built these when they converted from lard to kerosene, and they could no longer store their fuel inside the house. The fog signal building is one of the few remaining, I think one of 2 remaining structures of that size and design on the Great Lakes, and we are privileged to be able to keep it stable. In 1897, there were 2 more buildings built, the boathouse and the summer workshop. Now the boathouse apparently is a second build. The first one was taken down by weather. So it is what we have documentation of, and we have been able to preserve it or restore it as it is. Then in 1910, after many years of asking for better quarters, they built the assistant keeper's quarters. It is a 2-story dwelling, and there were very few of them built. There's 3 apartments to it, and we have been working to try and remediate the lead and make them actually suitable for our volunteers to stay in and save parts of that we needed to replace. In the bottom right corner is the original assistant keeper's quarters, which was a 5-room wood frame structure. And when that building was there, many of the keepers were required to stay all year long. So it was quite an improvement when they built the assistant keeper's quarters with hot and cold running water and electricity and indoor plumbing. In 1934, the last structure went up on the station. It was built in 1903. That's the skeletal tower. It was originally located in Sapelo Island, Georgia. They took it apart, all of the pieces are numbered, brought it up to Northport where they shipped it out to the island. Many men worked on putting that tower back together. The footings that you see on the right were 9 feet deep and 9 feet wide to be able to hold that structure. Now imagine in 1934 with no bulldozers or any other modern equipment to help build that. It was truly quite a task, and it did employ quite a few people. The keepers of the station, there were 64 different families that worked out at the station. This is just the keepers, it does not include the Coast Guard. But Louis Bourassault was the first Native American lightkeeper. He is pictured on your left with his family, and he served the longest as any keeper. He served 30 years on the station, and his son actually was also an assistant keeper out there. Many of the families would be out at the island in the summer, but they would take their children back to Northport for the school term. And so it was sort of a bachelor's preference. Apparently, living out at the station was so remote and so difficult that there are actually 2 keepers who lasted less than 3 months. What I don't understand is it was in the summer. That's the best time of all. In 1995, the U.S. Coast Guard took over the station. The light was automated, and they were then responsible for it. There's many oral histories that we have at the Leland Library that you can go and listen to. We were fortunate to do that before those coasties passed on, telling stories of their time out there. They served the station until 1969. And in 1971, the station was sold for $1 from the federal government to the state of Michigan. I wish I'd been in on that deal, sort of. I guess we're still there now. So in 1971, the state of Michigan got it, nothing happened. By 1984, they were talking about just taking down the buildings and simplifying it. They didn't have anyone to come out, work it, take care of it. And then they figured out that if they took those buildings down, they had to remove the debris from the island. So they decided to mothball it. And in 1984, Youth Corps went out. There were 3 different teams that went out for 10 days at a time, and they boarded up all the buildings, and people took what they wanted from the insides of the buildings. Someone even took one of the clawfoot tubs, which I understand is somewhere in Traverse City. I gave a presentation, guy came up to me afterwards and said, I know where that tub is. I go, great, can we have it back? He said, no. I just wanted to tell you I knew where it was. So, most of you know who PHILA is. You're members of PHILA. We're a 501c. We've actually been active out at the station since 2004. 2000 was when I became involved in it, so I kind of snuck that in there. We do hold a 25-year lease to the property, and we feel that we are the stewards of that station. Everybody in Michigan owns a part of that station, and we should all be concerned that it doesn't disappear. We have an all-volunteer staff. We have no directors. We have no paid members at all. And when we first started, this was what we came across. Doesn't look very good, does it? Doesn't even look very encouraging. Who thinks they're going to save any of this? How much work is going to be involved? Well, through the years, we have done a lot of work. And it is through the support, our supporters and our volunteers that we're able to have made this much of a difference in that short period of time. So, this is about the season of 2021. We had high water in 2020. We were at jeopardy of almost losing the boathouse, but we are now on a downswing with our water levels. So hopefully we'll be able to get some other work done. But this is what met us this year. This was a big problem. We couldn't get into the building. The doors that we had reconstructed were in jeopardy of being damaged beyond repair. And while thankfully Ham Hobson had tried to bring a backhoe out to help us move it on the National Park Service boat came out, it just wasn't going to work. The weather was too rough. The captain didn't want to stay at the station, so we ended up doing a lot of it ourselves. And when you get enough volunteers and everybody moves 10, 15 buckets of rocks, eventually we got the doors open, we were able to resecure them and put it away for another day without any fear of further destruction to it. We also put a coat of paint on the boathouse, which it needed desperately. It had been probably 5 or 6 years since we had put one on there. And we had volunteers go out for a day or a couple of days, grab a paintbrush, and start painting. We had to scrape it first, but it does make a difference. This is before we were able to put the final coat on the front of the building, but we got it. We made some big progress, and we're pretty proud of that. This is part of the West Beach, which is a wonderful place to explore. But another building that we worked on, we try and work on a little bit all of the buildings that are out there. Some of them don't need much, some of them need more and become a more relevant aspect when we're planning and trying to figure out what we're going to do for next year. But the workshop got a screen door. Might not sound like very much, but we use that workshop as a summer kitchen, all the volunteers. And if you've ever been out there in August, keeping black flies out is a really good thing. So we were grateful for that. The Lighthouse, 1867 Lighthouse was our biggest project this past year. A few years ago, some volunteers whitewashed 3 sides of the building. But the tower was too tall, too high, and too much of a risk for us to ask any volunteers to get up there. So we contracted and had a professional come out, and they spent a week and really worked very hard. They not only did the whitewashing, but they also did a lot of masonry repair, which is critical to keeping the structure standing. And that's what we came back with. It is so impressive when you come in off the lake and you walk up there and you see this gleaming white building. You know somebody loves it. You know that somebody cares that that's still there. The inside of the lighthouse got some touch-up as well. We got some period furniture out there. Kathy Sanders, who's in the back, painted the stairwell, which is so much nicer than a rusty orange, and it really starts to spiff the place up a bit. We were also able to get a final coat of remediated paint in the kitchen, and it's just a beautiful, bright place to be in. The closet picture up on the right might not seem like much, but if you saw it before, it was, or smelled it, yes, it was very potent. And the only way that we could, we tried to clean it before, but we just had to get in there and completely scrape it and paint it, and the smell went away. It was great. The bottom picture on the right is the room upstairs in the Lighthouse where most of our keepers will stay. And we've got cots and beds, and it's pretty comfortable. We took a writer from the Enterprise out earlier in the season, and he'd never been out to South Fox, but he'd read about it and he was really interested in it. So we took him out, he was there for a week, and on the way back, we asked him, what was the most surprising thing about this trip? And he thought for a minute and he said, how difficult it is to get to, but how great the accommodations are. We value our volunteers. This is another room that was scraped and primed with lead remediating paint that is also in the Lighthouse. This was originally the keeper's office or bedroom. We don't just work, we do enjoy the beautiful parts of the island. The assistant keeper's quarters. The porticos got a fresh coat of paint on them. There were shutters that were made, so now the whole building is able to be closed up at the end of the season, which helps to protect what's there. And we got another screen door on there. This is a screen door that's original. The one on the left is how we found it. And after working carefully, we were able to restore it. Many of the things on the island have been restored. There are no new windows or new doors. There may be some new hinges, but it is important to us that we work to preserve what was already there. These are shutters that we found in the station. They were refurbished and painted. Those that were no longer there, we had some carpenters who wanted a winter project, and they would build us these shutters to go on there. Now these guys are retired, or they just love woodworking, and the craftsmanship is the old style craftsmanship. It's amazing that things are being returned as close to possible. Some of the windows that we get, and I want to point out John and Karen Wells. Where are you guys? Raise your hands. Okay, back there, over there. John and Karen Wells have been working on windows for 7 years, 8 years maybe. They are the window people. They were the ones that refurbished the windows in the kitchen and the Lighthouse, and the first time that we were able to open that up and let light in, it was a miracle. But they get them in pieces. And there is a craftsmanship and a quality and a pride that goes into all of the parts that come together. The fog signal building, Pete, are you here? Pete was able to replace some glass and do some glazing, so we were able to open this window up and bring light into that building. It's an important step. These are little steps that we are taking, but every little step adds up. The skeletal tower got some fresh paint on the doorway, thanks to John McKinney, who's sitting over there. Everybody, a lot of people here have had a part in making this a fun place to be. The windows on the bottom right were constructed to match and be identical to what will be replacing the broken structures or the broken ones in the skeletal tower. On the left, you can see where they're trying to get some of the stops out because it's a metal frame that had a wooden window. It's always something. We were blessed this year. Probably one of the biggest new acquisitions that we acquired, and it was donated, was a John Deere riding lawnmower. And if The amount of time that it has saved hauling water up from the lake, moving debris, moving your supplies from the water 400 feet up to the top of the hill, this has been a godsend, and we are extremely grateful for our supporters. We did a lot of landscaping or ground maintenance this year, cleared a lot of the brush from around the buildings, and we were able to move stone up the hill, which was really, you gotta move it somewhere, and it made a difference, and it keeps it clean. We did some, what do you call it? To keep the water from going and breaking up the sidewalks, we put the rocks along the sides, that was all buried under dirt. The grave site is something that we will be working on more. There was a letter that was written by Louis Borso, who said that the man who was buried there was dug up by some scoundrels, and they reburied him. He said, we don't want anyone messing with those graves, plural. All we've ever known about is one, but there's more to discover up there. And it would be pretty exciting if, with each discovery that we make. We did get a water system in this year. We put a pump down by the lake, and we're able to pump water up to the workshop, which saved a tremendous amount of time. When you're out there, you have to haul up five-gallon buckets twice a day, and bringing them up by wagon was a lot of work. But now with the system, we can make that easier and more comfortable. The picture on the bottom right is not with any automated water. That is the way that laundry is done. Goes in one bucket, you use the plunger, agitate it, pull it out, wring it through. Sometimes the old-fashioned ways still work. Amenities. The far right, upper right picture is what we once had for our fire pit area where we would cook a lot of our food. Bottom right is the grill after we got the ring. And this year we got a ring to fit over the top. So it's cleaner, neater, and a lot more fun to cook. You're not dealing with a wobbly piece of metal. The other amenity that we got out there at the station this year was a propane refrigerator. Now some people think you don't really need a refrigerator, but if you're out there for 4, 5, 6 days, 3 weeks, it really helps to be able to make some ice when it's cocktail hour. That's not the only reason, but it's good. So we made some discoveries this year. The high water brought the rocks in, but then as it was receding, it uncovered a shipwreck. And there was bits and pieces of it that were washing up. We don't know what the boat is yet, but it was pretty exciting to see that be uncovered. It also uncovered some of the piping from the water system, from the well when they were bringing water from the lake up to the other buildings as well. The bottom right corner is the shipwreck, the Vega. It is a picture from Chris Rossborough's book. He has done extensive diving around the Fox Islands and continues to find other shipwrecks. South Fox Island is an official dark sky site. This is a picture taken out there with an iPhone. Had to be pretty dark to be able to do that. It's another reason to protect our resources. A big thing this year was that we got on the National Register of Historic Places. This was a long and lengthy process. A lot of proving why it was valuable or should be saved or considered for this. But we're really proud to be able to be on the National Register. And we look forward to putting a sign up out there next year and making it official. So what's ahead next summer, 22? We're planning now. We have to plan in the winter. Every trip that we make out there has to be checked and double-checked to make sure that we have the tools and the resources to do whatever projects. If you run out of nails, you're going to have to wait a couple weeks to get some more out there. There's no place to just run around the corner. So we're planning now because we are looking forward to the future. This is a stairwell that is on the 1867 Lighthouse. It is quite dilapidated and very dangerous. So a cover was made for it, which is what it has on there now. But we would like to repair it. We have put together a plan. We have sent it to SHPO for approval as to how it will be reconstructed. And next year, we will work to bring materials out in order to get it restored to its original glory. And by being able to have access to the basement, we can use that for storage of shutters and other things that aren't necessary in the summer. We're also going to do more grounds work. The pictures on the left you can't see very well, but they're stakes. After we cleared the hillside, which you can see on the right, we saw plants and flowers and everything coming up. And we wanted to make sure that they would be there again. So we've been identifying different flora and trying to make sure we have a controlled garden, not just overgrowth. We have a few leaks. So there's a roof project that we need to do. This may require professional services. We have yet to determine that at this point, but nobody wants a leaky roof. It just spells trouble coming down the way. And we will continue to remove stone. The picture on the right is where we are now. The picture on the left is where we were not all that long ago. And we hope to get back there. We will, diligently. And more painting. There are rooms to be painted, remediated. There's always something to do to try and improve the station. Just cleaning, washing windows, sweeping stairs. It's like your home. It is a home, but we have 7 structures that we are responsible for taking care of out there. We need to improve our transport. The Lightkeeper is both that for the past many years has transported our volunteers faithfully out to the station. This past summer, Captain Yorg made his 50th trip, taking us out there. Right after that, it blew an engine. So we are not sure what's going to happen with that process for next year, but we are exploring other opportunities. We have had volunteer people who came forward with their boats, and we were able to make all of our trips for the rest of the summer except for one. We had the privilege and the fun time of partnering with MHA, Maritime Heritage Alliance in Traverse City, and they came out and picked up our last crew that was out there working. It was an all-women crew, and it was an all-women crew that came out on the boat. And it was a wonderful way to return home from the station. We're hoping to further that partnership with MHA in the following seasons and maybe have them bring some volunteers out there, or at the very least have them bring some visitors that they are part of their organization that want to see the station. There are people who like lighthouses, and it is their mission to see as many as they can see. There are 250 lighthouses still remaining in Lake Michigan. South Fox Island is one of the most difficult to get to. It is the most unique to see, and there's a lot of people who would like to be out there. But it's not all that easy to get out there. This is just showing you some of the doors in the building. Many of the handles have been taken off and have been reconstructed. But it's just to show you the variety of projects and opportunities we have out there. It's not one thing, it's another. And there's always the beautiful sunrises. So our volunteers work both on island and on shore. It takes a lot of planning and coordination, scheduling, organizing to do each trip. We need help with securing rides to the island. If you know someone who has a boat and would like to do a trip, it could be a one-way trip. They could be going, taking people out. Maybe they can do a trip where they're pulling someone off the island, but we need your help. And we need you to tell other people about the station, because it's not so hidden anymore, and we don't want it to be. But volunteering is not necessarily an easy thing. There's no dock. You have to anchor, get in a dinghy, and go to shore. And then when you get off the island, you kind of push the dinghy off. And this is a short clip about doing just that. And that's every time you take someone out to the boat. Not every time, it's not always that rough, just most of the time. But you're guaranteed you're going to get wet at some point, either getting off or getting on. South Box Light Station is one of a kind. It really needs you to help preserve it.
Yeah, we will.